Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to build a bird in Blender. This is a tutorial for beginners. Before I start, I just want to show you a few things. First of all, on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you'll see this little square down here with a picture of a mouse. This is going to tell you exactly what I'm hitting on my keyboard and my mouse. So if you're unsure what I'm doing, you can always look down here and you'll see if I click left mouse, that lights up. If I click middle mouse, that lights up. And if I click right mouse, that lights up as well. Then also, if I hit G on my keyboard or R or S, you'll see that those will appear down here as well. Another thing that I want to mention is that as I'm working today, I'm going to be telling you don't forget to square up. And what that means is we want to have a view standing on the x-axis and facing the y-axis. So this green line is the y-axis, this red line is the x-axis, and to square up, you can do that in two ways. If you have a computer keyboard with a dedicated numpad, you can hit 3 on the numpad and it will square up just like that. So what you can tell is happening here is I am standing on the x-axis perfectly straight, looking forward toward the y-axis. Okay. Another way to do this is if I hit the little X on this widget up here in the upper right hand portion of your screen, it does the same exact thing. It squares me up. So when I say square up, you'll know either hit X on this widget up here or hit 3 on your numpad. Some other helpful tips. If you scroll your middle mouse, you will be able to zoom in and out to see what you're doing. If you hold down middle mouse and drag, you can move your way around and see your object from all sides. And if you hold down the shift key, hold down middle mouse and drag, you can move your screen like this. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And again, I'm going to go ahead and square up by hitting 3 on my numpad. The first thing I want to do is just delete this cube, and I do that by selecting it and hitting X on my keyboard and selecting delete. I'm still squared up from last time, and I'm going to go ahead and hit add, image, reference, and I'll select the bird image that I'm going to use as a reference image for building this bird model. So there's my bird model. Now our goal for today, for right now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to imagine that we're sectioning this bird off in little lines, and the lines are going to cut it into sections, vertical sections all along the body of the bird like so. And we're just going to focus on going from the tip of this tail. We're going to have a line that's perpendicular to the tip of this tail all the way up the body and to the tip of the beak. And the vertical line should end perpendicular to the tip of the bird's beak. We're not going to worry about the feet right now. We're also not going to worry about this extra feather here sticking out. We're just going to take some creative freedom and follow the basic shape of the bird's body and not really taking into consideration too much this extra feather. Okay, so allow me to show you how we're going to do this. First thing I want you to do is go up to add, mesh, and we'll add a cube. If we look and turn and we see this from all sides, you'll see that this is actually really, really symmetrical. If I hit Z, this is looking straight down, and you'll see that this cube is cut directly in half along the y-axis, and that's where our bird reference image is. So when I say that we're squaring up, it's in order to keep this bird symmetrical. If you forget to square up, what's going to happen is your bird, instead of being perfectly symmetrical across the y-axis, it's going to start to veer off in one direction or another, depending on how you're facing. So I can't really emphasize enough how important it is for you to square up every time you make a move. It's good to scroll around and look and see how things are looking. That's great. But before you do any changes or move forward, I always want you to remember to square up by either hitting X on the widget or 3 on your numpad. Okay, so now we're ready to start sectioning our bird up, and we'll start by selecting the cube. We'll hit tab into edit mode, R to rotate, and we'll just rotate this just like that. Perfect. Okay. Another thing that's important is up here, we're in edit mode. Right next to it, you can see we can work in vertices. That lets us move one little dot at a time. Edges lets us move one corner, and we want to move faces. So this is faces. Make sure you have faces selected. Then we're going to just select this very top face. It's the face that's the bird's head is sticking out of the top face of the cube here. We don't want the sides, we don't want the bottom, we just want this top face. Once you have that selected, go ahead and square up again. Now, when I do any edits now, it's just going to edit this top face, and that's what we want to start. So I'm going to go ahead and do G to move, and I can move this down a little bit to about the middle of the bird's body. Then I click to have it stay there. S to scale it. And now you can see how the top of that line and the bottom of the line are just fitting the bird's body just perfectly. So the top of the line should be lined up right with the bird's top, and the bottom should be lined up right with the bird's bottom. And you can achieve that goal by hitting S to scale, make it smaller, and then G to move it around until you get it so that it's just like this. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you want to get it as close as you can. Now, without accidentally deselecting this face, make sure we're squared up, and we're going to hit E to extrude. And I pull this out, and then I want to just scale it down. If it starts scaling too fast, you can always hold down Shift on your keyboard as you pull this up and down, and it kind of slows it down and fine tunes it a little bit. So I hit S, G to move it just a little bit. And now you see I've got it touching the bottom, touching the top, and that's exactly what we want it to do. We're not focused on the back end of this cube right now. For now, we're just worrying about sectioning it off and headed towards the beak. Then we'll come back afterward and deal with the bottom half and bring it towards the tail. But for now, we're just focused on getting towards the beak. And we're going to start adding some rotation in here because remember, our goal is to be perpendicular with this beak. So we want the line to be running this way. Okay, so E to extrude. I extrude that up again. Might do a slight rotate because I want to start rotating towards the beak. S to scale it down just a little bit. That's about right. And I click. And again, see these little ruffly feathers at the top of the bird's head? I'm not worried about those right now. I'm just going to keep going, tracing along the basic shape of the bird's body. So E again to extrude, G to move it, S to scale, G to move it again, S to scale again. Widen that out just a little bit. And there we go. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, just getting it close. So there we have it. Okay. And E to extrude, R to rotate. I need to start rotating this way so that I can get this perpendicular with the bird's beak. S to scale, G to move. E to extrude, R to rotate, S to scale, G to move. And I just keep doing a combination of those 3 moves. And I'm ready to extrude again. Extrude. R to rotate. S to scale, G to move, and maybe I need to scale back up just a hair. There we go. E to extrude, R to rotate, S to scale, G to move. There we go. And I'm just going to keep working my way towards the beak. Now you can see my line is already pretty perpendicular with the beak. So that's exactly how I want it to be. Let's take a second to scroll around and look and see how this is looking. If I look perfectly from the top view by hitting Z here, you'll see that everything is still perfectly symmetrical. Everything is identical on both sides of the y-axis, which is what we want. I'll go ahead and swivel back on over, square up on my x-axis. Make sure just this front face is selected. I don't want to edit any of the other faces, only the same front face that I've been selecting, that I've been editing. S to square up, E to extrude, S to scale, and G to move. And I'm just going to keep going. And what I'll do when I get to the tip of the beak is I'm just going to scale it down really small at the very tip of the beak. So E to extrude, I might just do 2 more, S to scale this down. Just hugging the edges of that beak there. G to move it just a little bit. And now I'm going to do my final extrude. E to extrude. I go just to the very tip of that beak. And then the only thing you need to do now, S to scale, and just scale it down as small as you can. G to move it just a little bit. There we go. And now if you look at the front of this, what I actually have here is the tiniest little rectangle at the tip of the beak. Okay? So again, now if I look directly down on it from the Z-axis by hitting the Z right here, you'll see everything is still perfectly symmetrical, and that's the way you want it. 3 to square back up, and now I've got the front part of the bird's body taken care of, so now I'm going to start working towards the tail end. So I'll come back here and select the very bottom of that cube. So you can see this is the bottom where the bird's tail is sticking out of. That's the face that I have selected. 3 to square up. The first thing I want to do is G to move this on up towards the body. And so I want my sections to be pretty similar in size. So I'm going to move it to right about here. And then I'm going to just repeat the same process I did to get to the tip of the bird's beak to go down and hit the tip of this bird's tail. So S to scale, squeeze that in, G to move it, and S to fine tune that scale. Again, I'm holding down shift just so I can have a little bit more control. The size of the sections should be approximately what I'm doing. Everybody's is going to be just a little bit different. This is not an exact science what we're doing. So whatever works for you there, but as long as you're really getting the shape of the bird, that's what we're going for. So let's just keep going. E to extrude, R to rotate just a little, S to scale, G to move. And I might have to scale that up just a little bit more. Okay, keep going. E to extrude, S to scale, G to move. And let's keep going. Now remember, I'm going to just go along this way and down the tail and just forget about that feather. And same thing I did when I got to the tip of the beak, I'm just going to scale this down till it's very small. And there we have it. I have blocked out the basic shape of the bird, and I have this fat little cube bird for right now. And we're ready for the next step.